She was only 5 when she walked into a pharmacy alone, not asking for candy or toys, but for medicine for her sick sister. She apologized before speaking. What the man behind the counter realized in that moment would change not just her life, but his forever. The automatic glass door of Caldwell Pharmacy slid open with a soft chime. It was late afternoon in the Upper East Side. Warm lights, polished marble floors, shelves lined with neatly arranged bottles and boxes. Everything smelled clean, expensive, and safe. A little girl stepped inside. She couldn't have been more than 5 years old. Her name was Lily Harper. She wore a faded pink jacket that was slightly too big for her, the sleeves covering half her hands. A small worn backpack hung from her shoulders, clutched tightly against her chest, as if it might disappear if she let go. Lily paused just inside the door. She didn't move right away. Her eyes traveled slowly across the room, taking in the tall shelves, the people in clean coats, the adults speaking softly at the counter. She swallowed and took a small step forward, then another, her sneakers making almost no sound on the floor. No one noticed her at first. Customers waited in line, scrolling through their phones. A pharmacist explained a prescription to an elderly woman. Everything continued as usual, except for the little girl standing there rehearsing something silently in her head. Lily looked down at her shoes, then at the backpack. Inside it, she carried nothing important, just a water bottle and a small blanket she used to tuck around her baby sister at night. But holding it made her feel braver, or at least less alone. At the far corner of the pharmacy, a man sat at a small consultation table reviewing paperwork. He was tall, silver-haired, dressed in a dark coat that matched the quiet authority of the room. His name was Ethan Caldwell, owner of the pharmacy chain, founder of one of the largest healthcare companies in the city. He wasn't looking for anything unusual that afternoon, but when the glass door closed behind Lily, he looked up. And for reasons he couldn't explain, his attention stayed on the small figure standing alone in the middle of his immaculate store. Lily walked toward the counter, slowly counting her steps, the way her mother had taught her when she was nervous. 1, 2, 3. When she reached the counter, she had to stand on her tiptoes just to be seen. The pharmacist, Ms. Reynolds, was organizing a tray of medications. She didn't notice Lily at first. Lily cleared her throat. It came out as a tiny sound. Excuse me? Ms. Reynolds turned, surprised. Her expression softened immediately when she saw the little girl. Yes, sweetheart. Lily hesitated. Her fingers tightened around the strap of her backpack. For a moment, it looked like she might turn around and run back outside. Instead, she took a breath. I'm sorry to bother you, Lily said quickly, the words tumbling over each other. I just wanted to ask something. That's okay, Ms. Reynolds replied gently. What do you need? Lily lowered her voice, as if afraid the shelves themselves might hear her. My baby sister is sick, she said. She feels very warm and she coughs at night. A few customers nearby glanced over, curious but quiet. Lily continued, eyes fixed on the counter. I was wondering if there's any medicine you don't need anymore. Maybe something you're going to throw away. The pharmacy seemed to grow quieter. Miss Reynolds blinked, caught off guard. She glanced instinctively toward the back where policy manuals and rules lived. Then she looked back at Lily. Oh, honey, she said softly. I'm sorry. We can't give out medicine like that. Lily nodded immediately, too quickly. I understand, she said. I just thought I should ask. She stepped back, already apologizing, with her body, her shoulders curling inward. At the corner table, Ethan Caldwell set his papers down. He had heard every word, and something about the way the little girl apologized for needing help made his chest tighten in a way no business report ever had. Lily turned toward the door. She didn't cry. She didn't argue. She simply accepted the answer the way children learn to do far too early. As she walked away, Ethan stood up. Wait, he said. His voice was calm, not loud, but it carried. Lily froze. She turned slowly, her eyes wide. The man walking toward her looked important. His shoes were polished. His coat was heavy and warm. For a moment, Lily worried she had done something wrong. Ethan stopped a few feet away and crouched down so they were at eye level. "You didn't do anything bad," he said gently, as if reading her thoughts. "I just wanted to talk to you." Lily nodded, still gripping her backpack. "What's your name?" he asked. "Lily," she whispered. "That's a beautiful name," Ethan said. "How old are you?" She held up her hand, all 5 fingers spread carefully. 5. Ethan smiled softly. "You said your sister is sick," he continued. "What's her name?" Mia Lily replied. "She's 2. "Are you here alone, Lily?" She shook her head quickly. "My mommy is home. I just came fast." Ethan took that in. "You did the right thing by asking an adult for help," he said. "That's what adults are for." Lily looked up at him, confused. "They are, yes," he answered without hesitation. "Always." He stood and turned to Ms. Reynolds. "Please prepare children's fever medicine," he said calmly. "And anything else appropriate. I'll take care of it." Ms. Reynolds didn't question him. She simply nodded. Lily's mouth opened slightly. "I don't have money," she said quickly. Ethan looked back down at her. "I know," he replied. "That's not what this is about." For the first time since she entered the pharmacy, Lily loosened her grip on the backpack. And in that small moment, something invisible but powerful shifted. Not just in Lily's life, but in Ethan Caldwell's as well. Ms. Reynolds moved with practiced calm, selecting items from the shelves. Children's fever reducer, a gentle cough syrup, a digital thermometer, vitamin drops. She placed them carefully into a small paper bag, as if arranging something fragile. Lily watched every movement. Her eyes followed the bottles as though they were something magical. Not because she understood what they did, but because they meant someone had listened. Ethan stood beside her, quiet. He noticed how Lily kept glancing toward the door as if reminding herself she wasn't supposed to stay long. "Do you know how to use these?" he asked gently. Lily shook her head. "My mommy does," she said. "She reads everything." "That's good," Ethan replied. "We'll make sure she has everything she needs." Ms. Reynolds set the bag on the counter and added a small card with clear instructions printed in large letters. She looked at Lily and smiled. "This will help your sister feel more comfortable." Lily nodded solemnly. "Thank you, miss." Ethan reached into his coat and placed a payment card on the counter. He didn't look at Lily when he did it. He didn't want her to feel watched or measured. When the transaction was done, he picked up the bag and knelt again. "Lily," he said, handing it to her. "This is a lot to carry. May I help you get it home?" Lily hesitated. She had been taught to be careful, to not go with strangers, to always ask first. "My mommy doesn't like me going places with people she doesn't know," she said honestly. Ethan smiled. "That's very smart. How about this, we go together and I meet your mom first?" Lily thought for a moment. Then she nodded slowly. "Okay," she said. "But our place is small." Ethan stood. "That's perfectly fine," he replied. "Homes don't have to be big to matter." Ethan's driver opened the back door of the car, and Lily stopped short. She had never been this close to a car like this before. The seats were soft. The inside smelled clean like leather and winter air. Lily climbed in carefully, holding the paper bag upright with both hands. Ethan sat across from her, leaving space between them. He didn't want to crowd her. As the car moved, Lily pressed her forehead lightly against the window, watching buildings pass by. "My sister doesn't like the dark," she said suddenly. "When she coughs, she holds my finger." Ethan listened without interrupting. "She thinks monsters live under the bed," Lily continued. "I tell her they don't, but I still stay close." "That's very kind of you," he said. Lily shrugged. "She's little." After a pause, she asked, "Do grown-ups get scared too?" Ethan considered the question carefully. Yes, he answered. We just don't always show it. Lily nodded, satisfied. The car crossed a bridge and the city slowly changed. Bright storefronts gave way to quieter streets. Fewer lights, older buildings. Lily shifted in her seat. This is where we live, she said softly, as if apologizing again. Ethan followed her gaze. He noticed the cracked sidewalks, the dim hallways visible through open doors, the tired silence of the neighborhood. Thank you for showing me, he said simply. When the car stopped, Lily hopped down first, holding the bag close. She walked ahead, confident now leading the way. This is our building, she said, pointing to a narrow entrance. The stairs are slow. Ethan smiled faintly. That's okay, he replied. We're not in a hurry. The apartment was quiet when Lily opened the door. Mommy, she called softly. From the bedroom came a tired but warm voice. I'm here, sweetheart. Rachel Harper sat up when she saw Ethan behind her daughter. Instinctively, she stood smoothing her sweater, embarrassed by the smallness of the room. I'm sorry, Rachel said quickly. I didn't know she would bring someone. That's okay, Ethan replied calmly. My name is Ethan. Lily asked for help today. Rachel looked down at the paper bag in Lily's hands. Her eyes widened. Lily, she whispered. What did you do? I asked, like you said. Lily replied. I said, please. Rachel's shoulders sagged, a mix of relief and emotion crossing her face. Thank you, she said to Ethan. I didn't want her to worry. Ethan glanced toward the small bed where a tiny figure slept under a faded blue blanket. Mia's chest rose and fell softly. She's been warm for days, Rachel admitted quietly. I was trying to manage until my next shift. But you did the right thing, Ethan said. And Lily did exactly what she was supposed to do. She asked an adult. Rachel nodded, tears welling but not falling. I used to work for Caldwell Health, she added hesitantly, before everything went wrong. Ethan felt his breath catch. He knew that name. Rachel Harper. The room seemed smaller suddenly, the air heavier, not with fear, but with truth waiting to be spoken. Ethan looked at Lily, then back at Rachel. I think he said carefully, there's more here we should talk about, and I'd like to make sure your girls are properly cared for. Lily climbed onto the edge of the bed and gently touched the blue blanket. She'll feel better soon, she whispered. For the first time that day, Rachel believed it might be true. Ethan didn't speak right away. The name Rachel Harper echoed in his mind, resurfacing from a place he hadn't visited in years. It wasn't a memory with a face attached to it. It was a name on a report, a line in a document, a decision approved with a signature and moved past. He looked around the small apartment again, this time more carefully. The furniture was old but clean. A small table pushed against the wall. A stack of children's books beside the bed. Everything spoke of effort, of someone trying to hold things together quietly. I remember your name, Ethan said at last. Rachel stiffened, not in fear but in recognition. You owned the company, she said softly. The healthcare supplier. I worked in quality review. Yes, Ethan replied. You flagged a distribution issue. Rachel nodded. Medication batches that didn't match the documentation. I thought it was a mistake at first. But it kept happening. Ethan closed his eyes briefly. The report had crossed his desk during a busy quarter. He had trusted the department head's explanation. Trusted that procedures had been followed. They said I misunderstood, Rachel continued. Then they let me go. I didn't fight it. I had 2 kids. I just needed time. Lily sat quietly on the floor now, arranging her sister's blanket with great seriousness. Ethan felt something heavy settle in his chest. I should have looked closer, he said. I'm sorry. Rachel looked up, surprised not by the apology, but by its sincerity. I don't want trouble, she said quickly. I just want my girls to be okay. That's exactly what I want too, Ethan replied. And the first step is making sure Mia sees a doctor today. Rachel hesitated. I don't have insurance right now. Ethan shook his head. That won't stop us. He knelt near Lily again. Lily, he said, how would you feel about going somewhere warm and safe so a doctor can check on your sister? Lily thought for a moment. Then she nodded. As long as Mommy comes. Of course, Ethan said. Families stay together. The private clinic was quiet, designed to calm rather than impress. Lily sat in a chair beside her mother, feet dangling above the floor, holding Mia's hand, as a pediatrician gently checked her temperature. There was no rush, no sharp voices, only slow movements and careful explanations. Her fever is manageable, the doctor said kindly. We caught it early. Rachel exhaled a breath she felt she'd been holding for days. She just needs rest fluids and the right medication, the doctor continued. Nothing alarming. Lily leaned forward. She'll be okay. Yes, the doctor smiled. Because you brought her here. Lily straightened, pride flickering across her face. Ethan stood by the window watching the city lights come on. He was relieved but also unsettled. How many other names like Rachel Harper had passed through his company unnoticed? When the doctor left, Ethan turned back to Rachel. I'm going to open a formal review, he said. Not just for your case, for everything. Rachel nodded slowly. I never wanted revenge. I know, Ethan replied. That's why this matters. Later, as Mia slept peacefully, Lily curled up beside her mother. Mommy, she whispered, the doctor was nice. Rachel brushed her daughter's hair back. Yes, he was. And the man from the store, Lily added. He listened. Ethan heard that. Those two words, he listened, stayed with him. As they prepared to leave, Rachel hesitated at the door. Mr. Caldwell, she said, you don't owe us anything. Ethan looked at Lily, then at Mia. I owe it to myself to do better, he said, and to make sure the people who speak up are protected, not punished. Rachel nodded, understanding more than he realized. Outside, Lily reached for Ethan's hand, not tightly, just lightly, as if asking permission. He gently let her. And for the first time in a long while, Ethan felt certain that this was exactly where he was supposed to be. That night, Ethan sat alone in his study. The city stretched out below his window, glowing and distant. On his desk lay old reports newly retrieved. Names, dates, decisions that once felt routine now felt unbearably personal. Rachel Harper wasn't the only one. He leaned back, running a hand over his face. In another part of the city, Lily lay awake beside her sister. The clinic bracelet still circled Mia's tiny wrist. Lily watched her chest rise and fall, counting softly the way she always did. 1, 2, 3. Rachel watched her daughter from the doorway. You did a very brave thing today, she said quietly. Lily shook her head. I was scared. Rachel knelt beside her. Being brave doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you ask for help anyway. Lily considered that. Will we be okay now? She asked. Rachel didn't answer right away. She thought of Ethan's promise, of the review, of the uncertainty ahead. Yes, she said finally. We will. Back in his study, Ethan picked up his phone and dialed a number he hadn't used in years. I want a full internal audit, he said when the call connected. Effective immediately. He hung up and looked at his reflection in the dark glass. For years, he had believed success was about efficiency, about growth, about numbers. But that afternoon, a 5-year-old girl with a worn backpack had taught him something else. That responsibility doesn't end at policy. That silence can do harm. And that sometimes the most important questions don't come from boardrooms, but from children asking very politely if anyone is willing to listen. Morning arrived quietly. Sunlight filtered through the clinic curtains, casting soft lines across the floor. Lily sat on the edge of the chair, swinging her legs as Mia slept peacefully, the blue blanket pulled up to her chin. For the first time in days, her breathing sounded easy. Rachel stood by the window watching the city wake up. She didn't notice Ethan at first. He had arrived early carrying a small folder under his arm. He hadn't slept much. Too many names, too many unanswered questions? I spoke with my legal and compliance teams, Ethan said gently, not wanting to startle them. The audit is official, independent, transparent. Rachel turned to face him. Her expression was cautious but steady. I never wanted to cause problems, she said. You didn't, Ethan replied. You tried to prevent them. He opened the folder and placed it on the small table. Inside were documents, clear timelines, reviewed protocols, handwritten notes from years ago. I trusted systems instead of people, he continued. And that was my mistake. Rachel studied the papers, then looked up. What happens now? Now Ethan said we do this the right way. He explained carefully. There would be interviews, safeguards, whistleblower protections. No one would be pressured. Everything would be documented. And you, he added, will not be left without support while this happens. Rachel hesitated. I don't want special treatment. This isn't special, Ethan said calmly. It's fair. Lily listened quietly, absorbing the tone rather than the words. She tugged on Ethan's sleeve. Are you going to be busy? She asked. Ethan smiled. Yes, but I'll still come by to check on you. That's okay, Lily said seriously. Grown-ups have work. Rachel felt her throat tighten. Before leaving, Ethan knelt once more in front of Lily. You did something important, he told her. Not by being brave, but by being honest. Lily thought about that as he walked away. Outside, Ethan paused in the hallway. Responsibility felt different now. Heavier, more human. And he knew there was no turning back. That evening, Ethan's house felt unusually quiet. His wife, Margaret Caldwell, sat at the dining table, her hands wrapped around a cup of untouched tea. They had been married for 34 years. She knew his silences well. You're late, she said gently. Yes, Ethan replied. It was a long day. He told her everything. Not in dramatic detail, but honestly. The pharmacy, the little girl, the audit, Rachel. Margaret listened without interrupting. When he finished, she sighed. You sound different. I feel different, he admitted. She leaned back. Are you sure you're not getting too involved? Ethan didn't bristle. He expected the question. I asked myself the same thing, he said. But this isn't about rescuing anyone. It's about correcting something I allowed to happen. Margaret studied him, and the child Lily Ethan smiled faintly. She reminds me what responsibility looks like before it gets complicated. Margaret's expression softened, then tightened again. I'm not worried about them, she said quietly. I'm worried about you, about us. Ethan nodded. That's fair. She reached across the table. I don't want to lose you to guilt. I'm not doing this out of guilt, he said. I'm doing it because I finally understand what my position means. Margaret considered his words. And when this is over, it won't really be over, Ethan replied. But it will be better. There was a long pause. I want to meet them, Margaret said finally, not to judge, to understand. Ethan looked relieved. I'd like that. Across the city, Rachel tucked Lily into bed beside her sister. Mommy, Lily whispered, Do you think the man from the store is tired? Rachel smiled softly. Probably, but he's choosing to do something good. Lily nodded. That's nice. Rachel turned off the light, feeling something unfamiliar but welcome settle in her chest. Hope, quiet, careful, and real, the audit began the following week. Conference rooms filled with files. Processes were reviewed line by line. No raised voices, no accusations, just facts. Ethan insisted on one rule above all others, no retaliation. Word spread quickly. Employees who had stayed silent for years began to speak carefully at first, then with growing confidence. Not out of anger, but relief. Rachel participated remotely, answering questions when needed. Each conversation was recorded respectful and voluntary. At home, Lily helped her sister stack blocks on the floor. "This one is the hospital," Lily said, placing a blue block carefully. "And this one is the store." Mia knocked them over, giggling. Rachel watched them, thinking about how close she had come to losing hope. One afternoon, Ethan visited again, not with papers, but with a small envelope. "This is temporary assistance," he explained. "Childcare coverage, transportation, until everything stabilizes." Rachel accepted it quietly. "Thank you. It's not charity," Ethan reminded her. "It's support during transition." Lily peeked into the envelope. "Is it for crayons?" she asked. Ethan laughed softly. "If you want it to be." That night, Ethan sent a company-wide message. Not polished, not corporate, just honest. He acknowledged failures, promised transparency, committed to rebuilding trust, and for the first time in years, employees believed him. As the city lights flickered on, Lily sat beside her mother. "Mommy," she said, "when I grow up, I want to help people the right way." Rachel kissed her forehead. "You already are." Across the city, Ethan stood by his window reading the first audit summary. The system was changing, but more importantly, so was he. And it all began with a small voice in a quiet pharmacy asking politely if anyone was willing to listen. The first real break in the audit came on a Tuesday morning, the kind of morning that looked ordinary from the outside. Gray sky, steady traffic, coffee cups in gloved hands. Inside a glass conference room at Caldwell Health, nothing felt ordinary. Ethan sat at the head of the table with two independent auditors, his general counsel and the head of compliance. The air smelled like paper and printer ink, the quiet scent of decisions being rebuilt. "Mr. Caldwell," the lead auditor said, sliding a folder forward, "we found a pattern." Ethan did not reach for the folder right away. He watched the auditor's face first, not for drama, but for certainty. "What kind of pattern?" he asked. The auditor opened the folder and turned it toward him. Invoices, purchase orders, batch numbers, shipping logs, medication labeled as premium quality. The auditor said was being substituted with lower-grade lots in specific distribution channels. The paperwork was altered to match. It wasn't a one-time error. It was systematic. Ethan's throat tightened. Rachel's words returned to him calm and steady from years ago. It kept happening. "How far back?" Ethan asked. 18 months, the auditor replied. "Possibly longer. We are verifying earlier records now." His general counsel, Nadia Pierce, leaned forward. "We also found something else. A group of vendors that do not exist." Ethan's hand finally moved. He flipped through the pages slower than he expected, as if his eyes needed time to accept what his mind already understood. "Shell companies," Nadia said. "Payments routed through them, then redirected. It appears someone created a false supply chain to inflate costs and hide substitutions." No one raised their voice. No one needed to. The facts were loud enough. Ethan set the folder down carefully like a fragile thing. "Who signed off?" he asked. The compliance head hesitated. The approvals went through a senior operations director, Elias Vance. The name sat in the room like a heavy object. Ethan remembered Elias. Polished, confident, always ready with a reassuring explanation. The kind of executive who made problems sound like math. Ethan looked at the auditors. "Do we have proof that would stand in court?" "Yes," the lead auditor said. "We have trails, emails, approval chains, vendor registrations. It is clear enough to act." Ethan nodded once. "Then we act," he said. Nadia spoke gently but firmly. "We need to do this by the book. Immediate suspension pending investigation. Secure all records. Notify regulators where required. And we should offer corrective measures before anyone else forces them." Ethan took a slow breath. He felt anger, yes, but beneath it was something sharper. Responsibility. He thought of Lily's small voice in the pharmacy. "I'm sorry to bother you." It wasn't just about money. It was about trust. about what people believed a healthcare company stood for. Schedule a meeting with Elias, Ethan said. Today, 2 o'clock, bring the documentation, and bring an independent HR observer. We will not turn this into a spectacle. When the room emptied, Ethan stayed behind with Nadia. I failed, he said quietly. Nadia shook her head. You inherited a system that rewarded speed and silence. But today, you chose truth. Ethan looked down at the folder again. Rachel tried to tell us. She did, Nadia said. And now you have a chance to correct it. Not only for her, but for everyone who stayed quiet because they were afraid. Across the city, Rachel sat at her kitchen table, Lily beside her coloring with careful attention. Mia stacked blocks and giggled when they fell. Rachel's phone rang. When she answered, Nadia's voice was calm, professional, respectful. Ms. Harper, we wanted to inform you that the audit has uncovered serious irregularities, and your previous report appears to have been valid. Rachel closed her eyes, relief and sorrow mixing in her chest. I never wanted to be right, she whispered. I know, Nadia replied. But you were, and we are taking this seriously. Rachel glanced at Lily, who looked up with curious eyes. Is that the lady from the phone? Lily asked softly. Rachel nodded. Lily returned to her coloring, drawing a big circle, a sun maybe, or a promise. Rachel held the phone tighter. For the first time in a long time, her dignity felt restored. Not by charity, not by pity, but by something stronger. Accountability. Elias Vance arrived at 2 o'clock exactly as if punctuality could protect him. He walked into Ethan's office with the same practiced smile he wore in boardrooms and charity galas. Dark suit, neat tie, confident posture. A man trained to look unbothered. Ethan, Elias said warmly, I was told you wanted to discuss audit updates. I hope everything is going smoothly. Ethan did not return the smile. He gestured to the chair across from his desk. Sit, he said calmly. Elias sat crossing one leg over the other, still composed. Nadia Pierce sat to Ethan's right with a binder on her lap. An independent HR observer sat near the door, quiet, attentive there, to ensure the process stayed professional. Ethan looked at Elias not with hatred, but with disappointment. We found discrepancies, Ethan said. Serious ones. Elias's smile faltered by a fraction. Discrepancies happen in large operations. I'm sure we can clarify. Nadia opened the binder and placed the first document on the desk. This vendor does not exist, she said. Yet it has been paid over $700,000 in 18 months. Elias blinked. That must be a clerical mistake. Nadia slid another page forward. Here is the vendor registration. It was created under your credentials. Elias swallowed. I don't manage every account personally. Ethan's voice remained steady. Elias, don't insult us. We have the trail. Nadia continued, careful and precise. We also found batch substitutions, lower-grade lots routed into specific distribution channels labeled as premium. The documentation was altered to match. Approvals were recorded under your authorization. Elias's posture stiffened. He tried to laugh, but it did not land. You're implying something criminal, he said, voice sharpening. That's a serious accusation. It is, Ethan replied, and we are treating it seriously. Ethan turned his monitor slightly so Elias could see an email chain. The language was coded, but the intent was clear. Instructions, timing, pressure, a system built to hide in plain sight. Elias stared at the screen. The smile was gone now. I can explain, he said quickly. The company was under pressure. You wanted costs reduced. You wanted results. I did what I had to do to keep operations stable. Ethan leaned back slightly. His hands were still. You did what you had to do. Ethan repeated, almost tasting the phrase. Then he said quietly, You risked people's health. Nadia's voice was firm but controlled. We have procedures for cost control. None of them include fraud. Elias's face tightened. I did not personally harm anyone. Ethan's eyes narrowed not in rage but in clarity. You betrayed trust. In healthcare, that is harm. The HR observer spoke for the first time, voice neutral. Mr. Vance, you are being placed on administrative leave pending further legal action. You are not to contact staff access systems or remove any materials. Elias pushed back in his chair, breath faster now. Ethan, come on. We have history. We built this together. Ethan's voice softened, which somehow made it heavier. We built a company that was supposed to protect people. You built a scheme. Elias stood abruptly. This will destroy my life. Ethan looked up at him. You destroyed trust first. Nadia slid a final document forward. We will pursue recovery of funds through lawful means. We will cooperate with regulators. We will also offer remediation, transparency reports, corrected processes, and where appropriate, compensation. Elias stared at the binder like it was a verdict. 2 security staff waited outside the office, not aggressive, not dramatic, simply present to escort him out properly. The process was quiet, dignified, legal. Ethan did not watch Elias leave. Instead, he turned to Nadia. Start outreach to the employees affected by retaliatory dismissals. Anyone who reported concerns, anyone who was labeled difficult, anyone who disappeared from the records. Nadia nodded. Including Rachel Harper. Yes, Ethan said. And anyone like her. Later that evening, Ethan drove to the apartment where Rachel and the girls lived. He did not come with gifts. He came with something rarer, a written statement. Rachel opened the door, Lily peeking from behind her leg, Mia in her arms. Ethan handed Rachel the statement. You were right, he said, and I'm sorry we made you pay for it. Rachel read the first lines. Her hands trembled slightly. Lily looked up at Ethan. Did you fix it? She asked. Ethan crouched to her level. I started fixing it, he said honestly, and I won't stop. Lily nodded like that was enough for now, because for a 5-year-old, the world does not change in one day. But it can begin. The next week, Rachel walked into Caldwell Health for the first time in years. Not as a desperate mother, not as a woman trying to prove she was not a liar, as a professional. Ethan had arranged the visit carefully. Private entrance, quiet conference room, no spectacle, no gossip, only respect. Rachel wore simple clothes, clean and neat. Lily's hand had helped pick the blouse, proud seriousness in her little face as she said, "This one looks brave." Mia stayed home with a trusted childcare provider arranged and paid for through a temporary assistance program approved by legal and compliance, documented, transparent, time limited. Rachel did not want favors. Ethan understood that. When she entered the room, Nadia greeted her first. Thank you for coming, Nadia said. Before we discuss anything, I want you to know you are protected here. Any participation is voluntary. You can stop at any time. Rachel nodded. I appreciate that. Ethan entered a moment later. He did not offer a dramatic apology. He offered a chair. Thank you for meeting with us, he said. Rachel sat, hands folded, posture steady. Ethan slid a folder across the table. This is a formal offer. Rachel opened it slowly. The position title was clear. Quality and Compliance Liaison. A role designed to create a direct channel between staff and leadership. A place where concerns could be raised safely without being trapped in middle management. Rachel's breath caught. This is not charity, Ethan said, as if he could hear the thought in her head. It is a job, with a salary, with benefits, with authority to escalate issues directly. Rachel looked up. Why me? Because you already did the hardest part, Ethan replied. You spoke up when it cost you. That is character, and character is the only thing I trust completely right now. Rachel's eyes filled, but she blinked the tears back. She would not be reduced to a symbol. Not again. I don't have a degree in management, she said. Nadia answered gently. You will receive training. We have a structured onboarding plan. Mentorship. External certification, if you want it. But you have the core skill that cannot be taught. Integrity. Rachel looked down at the pages, then back up again. And my girls? She asked quietly. I can't accept a job that makes me choose between being a mother and being an employee. Ethan nodded, ready for this. There is a family support policy we are implementing, he said. Flexible scheduling where possible. Verified childcare assistance for a defined period during transitions. A clear process, not favors behind closed doors. Rachel took a breath. It sounded like dignity. It sounded like a system that finally saw people. She glanced at the window at the city beyond it. Years ago, she had left this company feeling invisible. Now she was being invited back not to be rescued, but to help protect others. Ethan's voice lowered. Rachel, your report was not only correct, it was valuable. We failed to honor that. I want to rebuild the company around the kind of courage you showed. Rachel looked at the signature line. Her hand hovered. Then she asked one more question, the one that mattered most. Will this protect other people, she said, so no one else has to go home and explain to their child why honesty got them fired? Ethan's eyes held hers. That is the goal. Rachel signed, not as a grateful recipient, as a partner. That evening, Rachel returned home with the folder in her bag. Lily ran to her, eyes bright. Did you get the brave job? Rachel knelt and hugged her gently. Yes, she whispered. I did. Lily wrapped her small arms around her mother's neck. Then Mia won't be warm anymore, she said. Meaning fever, meaning fear, meaning everything she could not fully name. Rachel kissed her daughter's hair. We're going to be okay, she said. And for the first time, it didn't feel like a wish. It felt like a plan. Margaret Caldwell had agreed to the meeting, but she hadn't known what to expect. She stood in the doorway of the small apartment, taking in the narrow hallway, the soft smell of soap, the quiet hum of a lived-in space. It was not poverty that struck her first. It was care. Everything had its place. Nothing was neglected. Rachel greeted her politely, a trace of nervousness in her smile. Thank you for coming, Rachel said. Please come in. Margaret nodded, smoothing her coat as she stepped inside. She had imagined many versions of this meeting. None of them involved a 5-year-old peeking shyly from behind a couch. Hello, Lily said softly. Margaret turned, surprised by the small voice. And you must be Lily, she replied, bending slightly to meet the child's eye level. I've heard a lot about you. Lily tilted her head. Good things, Margaret smiled despite herself. Very good things. Mia toddled across the floor, holding a stuffed bear by one ear. Margaret instinctively crouched to steady her when she stumbled. She's steady now, Lily announced proudly. The medicine helped. Margaret felt something loosen in her chest. They sat at the small table with cups of tea Rachel had prepared carefully. No one rushed. No one filled the silence unnecessarily. I was afraid, Margaret admitted quietly. Afraid that my husband was trying to replace something he felt was missing. Rachel met her gaze. I never wanted to take anything from anyone. Margaret nodded. I see that now. She looked around again, then back at Rachel. You've done something extraordinary, not just by speaking up, but by raising a child who knows how to ask for help without losing herself. Rachel swallowed. She learned that because she had to. Margaret reached across the table, and now she won't have to learn it alone. Lily listened, not understanding the words, but feeling the tone. She climbed onto the chair beside Margaret and whispered, Do you like tea? Margaret laughed softly. I do. Lily beamed. Mommy makes it brave. Margaret looked at Rachel, eyes shining. For the first time, she didn't see a threat. She saw a family that had survived quietly, and a child who had taught her husband how to listen again. The weeks that followed felt different, not dramatic, not perfect, just steadier. Rachel settled into her new role with caution and focus. She listened more than she spoke, and when she spoke, people listened. The new reporting channel began to work not because it was revolutionary, but because it was safe. At home, Lily started kindergarten. She wore a backpack that was still a little too big and shoes that squeaked when she walked. Rachel watched her line up with the other children, heart full and nervous all at once. Mommy Lily said before entering the classroom, "If someone is sick, I can tell the teacher." "Yes," Rachel said, kneeling to adjust Lily's jacket. "That's exactly what you should do." Lily nodded seriously, then ran inside without looking back. Margaret visited often, sometimes bringing books, sometimes just sitting quietly, while Lily drew pictures at the table. One afternoon, Lily handed her a drawing. It showed 3 figures holding hands. One tall, one medium, one small. "Who's that?" Margaret asked. "That's Mommy Lily," said, pointing. "That's you, and that's Mr. Ethan." Margaret smiled. "And where are you?" Lily pointed to a small sun in the corner. "I'm the light." Margaret laughed, then felt tears threaten. Later that evening, Margaret spoke to Ethan. "She's not replacing us," she said quietly. "She's reminding us." Ethan nodded. Of what? Of who we were before everything became complicated. The company released its first transparency report soon after. It wasn't flashy. It didn't erase the past. But it was honest. Rachel read it carefully at home while Lily colored beside her. Mommy Lily asked, "Are you fixing things?" Rachel smiled. "With help." Lily nodded. "That's better than fixing alone." Rachel kissed the top of her head. Yes, she thought. It was. One evening, as winter gave way to early spring, Ethan visited the apartment alone. No documents, no folders, just himself. Lily was building a tower out of blocks. She looked up when she saw him. "You came," she said simply. "Yes," Ethan replied. "I said I would." He sat on the floor, careful not to knock over the tower. "Mr. Ethan," Lily said thoughtfully, "do promises get tired?" Ethan blinked. "What do you mean, sometimes people promise things and then they forget?" she explained. "Does that happen?" Ethan considered her question. "Promises don't get tired," he said slowly. "People do. That's why promises need care." Lily nodded, satisfied. Rachel watched from the doorway, arms folded loosely. "I wanted to thank you," Ethan said to her, "for trusting us again." Rachel shook her head. "I trusted the process, and I watched how you treated Lily. That mattered more." Ethan stood to leave, then paused. "I won't promise that everything will always be easy," he said. "But I promise we will keep doing the right thing even when it's uncomfortable." Rachel extended her hand. "That's enough," she said. Lily ran over and hugged Ethan's leg, brief and spontaneous. "Thank you for listening," she said. Ethan rested his hand lightly on her shoulder, careful, respectful. "Thank you for asking," he replied. As he left, Lily returned to her blocks. The tower stood taller than before, and this time when it wobbled, she didn't panic. She just adjusted the base, because someone had taught her something quietly powerful. That help, when given with dignity, doesn't weaken you. It steadies you. Spring arrived quietly. The city felt lighter, as if it had decided to breathe again. Lily walked beside her mother on the sidewalk, holding a small paper bag from the pharmacy. This time it wasn't for medicine, just bandages and vitamins, ordinary things for an ordinary life. She skipped on once, then stopped suddenly. "Mommy," she said, "I didn't say sorry today." Rachel looked down. "Sorry for what?" "For asking," Lily replied. "At school I asked the teacher for help with my shoes, and I didn't say sorry first." Rachel felt her chest tighten. "That's good," she said softly. "You don't have to apologize for needing help." Lily nodded, absorbing the words like truth. At work, Rachel finished her day by locking a small file cabinet. Inside were reports, concerns raised, safely handled responsibly. No fear attached to them anymore. Ethan read the latest update that evening. Fewer complaints now, not because problems were hidden, but because systems were working. Later he visited the pharmacy where it had all begun. The same glass door, the same soft chime. But something was different. Near the counter, a small sign stood, simple and clear. If someone you love is sick, please speak to us. You don't have to carry this alone. Ethan watched a mother read it, hesitate, then step forward. No child had to stand silently anymore. Across the city, Lily fell asleep holding her sister's hand, not because she was afraid, but because she wanted to. The world hadn't become perfect, but it had become kinder. One afternoon, Lily sat at the kitchen table drawing. She drew the pharmacy first, then the apartment, then a big circle around them all. Rachel watched from the sink. "What's that?" she asked. "That's where everyone listens," Lily replied. Rachel smiled. Ethan and Margaret visited that weekend, not as benefactors, but as friends. They brought fruit, not gifts. Conversation, not solutions. Margaret sat beside Lily as she colored. "Do you know what medicine does?" Margaret asked. "It helps people feel better," Lily said. Margaret nodded. "Yes, but sometimes it helps people feel seen, too." Lily looked up, thoughtful. "Like when someone looks at you and doesn't look away." "Yes," Margaret said softly. "Exactly like that." Ethan watched the exchange, understanding something he had missed for most of his life. He had believed solutions came from power, but healing came from attention. Before leaving, Ethan knelt beside Lily. "Do you remember the day you came to the store?" he asked. Lily nodded. "I was scared." "And what did you do?" he asked. "I asked," Lily said, "even though my voice was small." Ethan smiled. "That was very brave." Lily considered this, then shrugged. "I think people just need to listen faster." Ethan laughed quietly. Yes, he thought. That was the real cure. Months later, a different little girl stood outside the same pharmacy. She held her mother's hand tightly, eyes wide, unsure. The glass door slid open. Inside it was warm. A pharmacist smiled and knelt slightly, meeting her gaze. "How can we help you today?" The girl hesitated, then spoke. "My brother is sick," the pharmacist nodded without surprise. "Let's take care of that." Across town, Lily learned to read her first full sentence out loud. Mia clapped when she finished. Rachel listened, heart full. Ethan sat in his office signing the final approval on a company-wide policy, one designed not just to prevent harm, but to invite honesty. Margaret stood beside him. "This all started with one small moment," she said. "Yes," Ethan replied. "And it stayed small. That's why it worked." That evening, Lily asked a question as Rachel tucked her in. "Mommy," she said, "will people always listen now?" Rachel thought carefully. "Some will," she said. "And when they do, it matters." Lily smiled sleepily. "Then I'll listen too." The camera of the story lingers on the pharmacy door. Open. Waiting. Because sometimes the most powerful thing an adult can give a child is not medicine, not money, not answers, but the certainty that when they speak, someone will stay. Did this story move your soul? Share your feelings in the comments and rate it from 1 to 10. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, then tap the bell icon so you never miss a new story. Click the end screen to watch another heartfelt video. See you in the next story.